good.
Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond Sports. I'm your host, the Fitted Nuggets fan, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Bob Taylor.
Hey.
We're coming to you live from 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. Well, we've got a great show lined up for you all today. We're going to start it off with some Nuggets Now, just kind of taking a look at another preview of how the Nuggets have done over the past 7 days. Moving on from that, we're going to do an additional segment of our favorite Nuggets knowledge where we try to guess a player throughout Nuggets history. We'll be having a special interview with Rob Hill, the designer of the Black History Month shirts for the Denver Nuggets. Very special guest. You might recognize some of his art from the Rhino District. And then finally, we will be ranking some of our favorite eras. So 7 eras of basketball, 7 decades of basketball. And we're going to be ranking them in order, at least our particular order of favorites. But first up, we've got kind of a look on how the Nuggets have done this past week. Bit of a mixed bag, but overall I would say pretty positive. Really looking strong heading into this. And obviously since the All-Star break, 8-1, I mean, as good as you can ask for. I mean, so out of these last 3 games, Bob, where do we stand now?
So they went 2-1 the last week. They lost to the Suns. They beat the Celtics, beat the Jazz. Overall, it was definitely a good week, beat the best team in basketball. However, losing to the Suns without Devin Booker, not the best look, considering that might be who we match up with in the playoffs. KD played exceptionally well. Didn't shoot very well, but he still ended up with 35, 8, and 5. Grayson Allen shot insanely well and ended up with 28, 5, and 4, and I think he was really the catalyst that put them over. Although KD pretty much came up in the clutch every single time they needed him to. Grayson Allen was really the driving force that made them stay in the game the whole time. And the Nuggets came back from down 22, but they still they couldn't really get over the hump as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think what we're noticing is the upgrades that the Suns have made to their additional roster slots in Grayson Allen and Nurkic, because of those roster moves are clearly working out for him. I would say those 2 individuals made a big impact on the game against the Nuggets, and you can tell that they have catered some of their additions to their roster specifically around the Nuggets and trying to beat us
Jokic
in this upcoming playoff series.
Jokic shot under 50%. He shot 4 of 7 from 3, which is uncharacteristic of him, to be honest.
High number of turnovers.
But he also had 7 turnovers. Yeah, exactly. He had 7 turnovers. So the Nurkic signing definitely was something for the Suns. I mean, they have to be happy as far as seeing this game and thinking that they made the right move. And I think they did make the right move. Can they stop Jokic? Definitely not. But can they maybe slow him down a bit? This game kind of shows that maybe he can. And he fouled out, but
it's okay if he fouls out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Suns are built well right now, and they're definitely a threat. And I think overall the West is just so deep, it really doesn't matter who we match up with going into the series. It's going to be tough. And the Suns are looking very good, and they're coming into form at the end of the season as well. But one thing I've really enjoyed about the Nuggets is just their toughness. I mean, they come off that tough loss where they've made mistakes, they didn't play well. There's a lot of things that could have been done differently to win that game against the Suns, and they snap right back 2 days later and play the Celtics, and they play a phenomenal game. Hard fought all the way through, and just what a win. I mean, that was the win we needed to see. Everyone's been talking playoff atmosphere. These teams are bringing the playoff atmosphere when they play us, and we're bringing it right back. And it was some really great basketball to watch. I have to say, that Celtics game was beautiful. Aaron Gordon with potentially another dunk of the year. I would say as of right now, that'd be my contender. Yeah, that putback was unbelievable. The passing.
He had 2 other oops that were insane. I mean, he had 2 oops and a putback in the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And they were all huge momentum swings for Denver.
Yeah, just Aaron Gordon being right where he needs to be, Mr. Nugget himself doing his job. And when the Nuggets are operating like that and we get good games from MPJ, which we're starting to see, I think that's been one of the biggest factors. And then Jamal Murray really elevating to that next tier of all-star caliber player. We're starting to see way more consistent 25-point per game plus games from him rather than the 20-point per games that we were seeing him before the All-Star break. So now that he's moving up the chain on that level, it's been a great driving force for the rest of the team. Because Murray's abilities, he can get a bucket when no one else is really able to get one. You know, he can just make a shot happen, and not everybody else on the team can do that kind of thing. Obviously, Jokic in the paint can, and he's a good shot creator, but Murray's just got that special extra sauce that we need, especially going into this playoffs.
Well, and even from exactly what you just said, he hits it all in the right moments. Against the Celtics, he really didn't play exceptionally well for Murray. Like, he only had 19, 6, and 8. He was 7 of 18 from the field. I think he was only 1 for 4 from three-point line, and he had 5 turnovers. That wasn't the best game we've ever seen from Jamal Murray by any means. However, every time that we absolutely needed the bucket to stay in the game, he hit it. And I think it was the one-handed floater that he hit, kind of
buzzer
stepping
beater.
back. No, not the buzzer beater. The one in the either the late third quarter or kind of early fourth quarter-ish. But it was just a one-armed kind of like sidestep floater when he got fouled, and he hit it, and it was phenomenal. And they needed that so bad because they just hadn't had a shot make in a couple minutes. But his ability to kind of even stay in the game when he's not having the best night is, I think, very important for the Nuggets, especially coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, one underrated component, I think, is the bench play is really elevated. In particular,
They won their minutes in the Celtics game.
yeah, Peyton Watson, getting those 11 points and 11 crucial points, as well as his blocks. I mean, he has made some stupendous blocks in the last few games and really elevated his game kind of almost to that playoff Christian Brown level that we saw last year. And Christian Brown is starting to come alive as well. He's starting to hit shots he should hit and starting to have more impactful minutes. And one thing I've really appreciated about the bench is it's not a negative as much anymore when they're coming in. We're not losing all that momentum that the starting unit creates. We're able to at least, okay, we're getting buckets that we need to. We're keeping the lead. And now the starters come back in and just pour more points on. And we saw them keep us in the game against the Celtics. They fought hard when Jokic was on the court, and that's what allowed us to eventually win that game. And then we saw it even more so with the Jazz because with that whole game, they were just dominating. And that's what we want to see from somebody like that.
Yeah, and Christian Brown's been playing very well for the bench. Unfortunately, Reggie Jackson has not been playing well for the bench. I mean, his best game this week was 6 points, and it was against the Jazz. And I don't think he shot – I mean, he was 1 for 6 against Phoenix, 2 for 7 against the Celtics.
2 for 7.
Yeah, and then 2 for 7 again against the Jazz.
Yeah, it's definitely time to start pulling back the reins on Reggie Jackson.
Well, I think something that we saw this week was Justin Holiday has been getting a lot more minutes.
I have noticed that.
And even though he hasn't necessarily been scoring that much, I mean, I think he's only probably averaged 2.5 points a game the whole week throughout these 3 games. But he's also been playing. He went from 0 to 8 minutes a game to 8 to 16.
12 against the Celtics, though.
Yeah. Wait, for Justin Holiday, he only had 2 points against the Celtics.
12, 5 for 10. Oh, Drew Holiday.
Yeah, Drew Holiday. Wrong brother.
Wrong brother. But either way, Justin Holiday's been playing some tough time.
Well, he's been
really good on the defensive end as well. Crucial defensive plays.
That's what I was going to say.
And he made a couple big offensive plays as well. Even though he may not have scored a lot of points, he hit some big-time shots.
Yeah, he hit them when they needed him to. And then, I mean, unfortunately, as much as I like Reggie Jackson, he's just not a positive defender. And I think Justin Holiday's been able to kind of be the positive defender that they need. Because while Christian Brown and Peyton Watson are both great defenders, they don't have a full backup 5 that can guard anybody. So they need extra help.
Yeah, and I mean Peyton Watson definitely taking a step in the defensive category off the bench. I just think that
5
the bench
blocks this
unit,
week.
yeah, I think the bench unit is doing exactly what we need from them. And if this is the kind of team that we can have for the duration of the playoffs, it's going to be a very exciting postseason for Nuggets fans.
Yeah. And I think a huge part of that is, I mean, we held Jason Tatum to 15 points. I mean, holding Jason Tatum to 15 points, I get we gave up 35 to KD, but Bradley Beal had 16. So the defense is really looking good.
This has been Nuggets Now with Beyond Sports. Be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call in or text the show at 720-446-8463. Again, that's 720-446-8463. We've got a great segment of Nuggets knowledge coming in after the break. Tune in shortly after this. Welcome back to Beyond Sports. Well, that was a good segment of our Nuggets Now. Obviously, our Nuggets are dominating heading into the playoffs, so love to see that. But time now for one of our favorite segments, Nuggets Knowledge. So for our listeners out there who may be new to Nuggets Knowledge, what we like to do is one of us, either myself or Bob, are going to pose a bunch of different stats and accomplishments, and the other person has to guess what that player is based off of those stats and accomplishments. So we've been keeping track. I think Bob's got me by a little bit right now, but either way, I've got an opportunity to guess this week. So, Bob, what do you got for me? Throw some stats my way.
I think I'm up 1 to be.
I know it's
exact.
close.
It is close.
So the official book, we
I
got
think I'm up 1.
Okay, Bob's up 1.
It's not an official book. I don't think we've. Really
This
looked
is
into
the
it too
only
much.
official book.
But so
No one is officially keeping score of this.
the person I have this week, very, very, very interesting player. I think a very historic player. So let's go with this. I'm just going to name a couple of his accolades so far. He's got a 3-time All-NBA first team selection, a 3-time All-NBA second team selection. He won an MVP, and he was a 4-time scoring champ. So he's a big deal. Like, he's an NBA, like the NBA's best.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to keep going a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course. I have more stuff.
Yeah, we got to hear it all. Just in case. I mean, I got my thoughts
He's
initially,
in a-
but I only get one guess. You
That's
can't
true.
forget about that. I
That's true.
only get one opportunity here. So
So, on
be
top of being a
conservative.
4-time scoring champ, he was also a 3-time steals champ. So,
Wow.
3 times he led the NBA in steals.
doing it on both ends.
Yeah. 11-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star MVP. He played for only 4 NBA teams, and he had 14 seasons in the NBA, 3 of which were for the Nuggets.
So not a ton of time with the Nuggets.
Not really, especially considering in those 3 seasons, he only played 135 games, 3 of which being in the 3rd season.
So
'cause
not
he
even
got-
2 full seasons.
Yeah. He got traded halfway through his first season there, and then 3 games into his second season there.
Okay. So you wouldn't sum up his career with the Nuggets positively then?
Not necessarily that. I just think it wasn't. I don't know. I think it wasn't what a lot of people might remember, if that makes sense. I think people will remember it as the good times and not the bad times.
Yeah, the realisticness of those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of that nostalgia. And to be fair, too, it's been hard to be a Nuggets fan for a while just because, since the 90s, obviously, with Mohamed Abdul-Rauf, they were able to get somebody exciting with Dikembe Mutombo in that time period. But, I mean, since then, it had been a while.
Yeah. So he went to Georgetown in college. That's where
Okay.
he was drafted from. He was a number 1 draft pick in the NBA. I'm not going to tell you which team.
But number 1 overall.
Number 1 overall.
Okay. All right, what about Nuggets? What did I know him about the Nuggets? Only 3 seasons, 135 games played. I mean, this will be an interesting one to rank on the Nuggets. Just
Yeah.
trying to compare, where we end up with that. Obviously, I need to guess him first, but from a Nuggets perspective, anything notable or worth mentioning?
A lot of stuff notable. So he was only on the Nuggets for 135 games. So he's automatically eliminated from all-time leading stuff.
Yeah.
However, points per game leading, or not points per game, but just per game leading categories, he's got a shot. And, for example, points per game, he's the number 2 in Nuggets history with 25.6 points per game. He's number 4 in assists per game for the Nuggets in history with 7.1 assists per game. And he's number 6 in steals per game for 1.9 steals per game.
Okay, so getting it done when he did play.
Yeah. He also is number 1 overall in minutes per game at an insane 42.
Wow. That's quite a bit. How many are in a total game? 48?
Yeah.
Wow,
I
so
think so, yeah.
barely sitting at all.
Yeah. I mean, he was a very important part of the team when he was playing there.
All right. Well, that's quite a bit to go off of.
Yeah. He was 8th in player efficiency rating and also 8th in usage percent.
Was he an MVP when he was on the Nuggets? No.
He was not, no.
You got any additional info? Or
I believe
time to
that's
make my guess.
I believe that's all I got.
All right. The time is now. Let's see here. My gut, especially with some of the information that you gave me, would say Allen Iverson.
That is correct. Allen Iverson, drafted number 1 overall to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, that would have given it away.
Yeah, I didn't want
Georgetown gave it away kind of already.
I kind of thought so.
But either way, I mean, Allen Iverson, extremely iconic player for the Nuggets.
I thought the minutes per game is honestly what gave it away.
That is pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
we've had a few players over the years. You know, anytime you look at those specific stats, it can be anybody. You know, like you see minutes per game, and it could just be some random player. But at the end of the day, I mean, obviously Allen Iverson, huge part of that organization at that time period, alongside Melo. The 3 seasons, only 135 games played, surprises me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how little of time he had with the Nuggets, especially considering he played 82 games in a full in one of the seasons that he was there.
Yeah, and I think
the only
that
full season that he was there.
it left such a lasting impression on the Nuggets organization after all this time, because he still talked about his jerseys are still sold in Nuggets.
It's one of the most popular jerseys I see at Nuggets games.
Yeah, and the fact that he really realistically only played 1 actual season with them,
Yeah.
crazy, but iconic time period for the Nuggets to say the least. So for somebody like Allen Iverson, I mean, where are you potentially going to be putting him all time on the Nuggets list? And I think that's what makes it crazy.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I think this is a very interesting topic because I don't think he deserves to be very high up on the Nuggets list. However, on the overall NBA list, I think he deserves to be very high up.
Yeah.
So to just start off with
That's
the
why
Nuggets,
they're 2 different lists.
I understand, but to start off on the Nuggets list, I would say, I mean, does he break the top 25? What do you think?
You know, that's a really tough question. I would almost say it's disrespectful not to put him in the top 25 just because of the impact he did have.
It is.
And the time period, and I mean, like, Allen Iverson with Carmelo defined that particular era of the Nuggets. Without Allen Iverson, it's just not the same. Obviously, Melo was the driving force, but without Iverson, it's just not the same team. It's not the same era.
25.6 points per game. I mean,
that's fantastic.
That's crazy.
And those stats are interesting, but at the same time, it's like he really didn't put much overall like seasons into them. 135 games total. I mean, that's really tough to be like, okay, you're one of the all-time greats. But at the same time, I think the fandom, the fact that his jersey still sold, they really don't sell a whole lot of old school players.
Yeah.
I'd say they sell less than 10 online. And Allen Iverson is obviously
Of
one
course
of their
one of them.
best sellers.
Yeah.
And like you said, still see him at the games all the time. And I think just the impact he had on the organization and making the Nuggets cool was reason enough to give him some more recognition than you normally would for somebody like that. Because while he was only on the team for 135 games, he
For
was
a
on
full
there.
season, a half a season, and then 3 games.
So I just think as a whole, it's just the impact he had over the course of that.
Yeah,
And
I
it was
definitely
big.
agree.
It was huge. It was especially when you put it like that, where it's basically a season and a half. You can't even really count the third one.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. That's insane that it was such a short time frame, because you would have thought he played here at least 3 to 5 years with how he's remembered in the city.
Yeah, definitely. And
So top 25 or not?
I think I'd say 20.
20th?
Just because of how you were framing it with how much impact he had on Denver basketball and Nuggets basketball, and just kind of how people have seen the Nuggets in recent years, I would definitely say probably around 20th.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree. I mean, he was part of one of my personal favorites eras of the Nuggets, and just in general, like I said, just making the Nuggets cool has that massive impact on basketball and the organization. So 20th, I would agree so, but I think where we're really not necessarily going to disagree, but I think where the real question comes in is, where does Allen Iverson stand when it comes to all-time greats? We have the NBA organization, which we said is roughly around 4,000 all-time.
Top 75 for sure.
I think so.
I don't think there's an argument to be made that he's not. I mean, he's an MVP.
No championship.
No champion. Okay, but he's an MVP.
Yeah, he is an MVP. And right there, that means that there's only been, 78 MVPs ever? So,
What is it, the 78th year? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess there's only been less.
well, I think
they've
it
been
is
less
currently.
than that.
Yeah,
because-
this current year is the 78th year, I believe.
Yeah, so there's been less than 78 MVPs because
Yeah, so I
multiple
think
people
that's
have
our
won
that's our
multiple
benchmark,
MVPs.
because you can't say that they're not. And so that multiple MVPs. So top 75, I think while no championships involved, I think championships help define kind of the ranking within the top 75, right?
Yeah.
Well, for somebody like Allen Iverson at least.
4-time scoring champ as well.
That's
I
a big
think
one.
Is a huge aspect of his career. I mean, rookie of the year, 3-time All NBA first team, 3-time All NBA second team. I know. I've already
3-time
said it.
steals leader too.
Yeah,
Underrated part of his game was that defensive side. 11-time All-Star, double-digit All-Star. I mean, that's dominating
and
an
one of the
entire
most
decade.
influential people of like the early 2000s.
Somebody
as far
comparable to
as
Michael
the NBA
Jordan.
goes.
I mean, he kind of defined that post-Michael Jordan era fashion alongside of Kobe.
yeah,
And, I mean, he did. He
He
made
was a-
Reebok
he was a-
cool.
somewhat a face of the league. Him, Kobe, Shaq.
The braids. I mean,
Yeah.
just the whole look. The big baggy clothes.
How he played too.
Yeah.
Guards just being super shifty and
attitude.
be able to.
I mean, just the whole thing. It was very Jordan-esque, in my
Practice.
opinion. Yeah, it was very Jordan-esque, though. He was his own guy. He had his own style, and he just wore it so well. And I thought that was one really cool thing about Allen Iverson. It's what we all kind of liked about Allen Iverson. He
Yeah.
was his own guy. Mom braiding his hair on the side of the court. He did some really iconic stuff for the NBA. And, I think he gets kind of thrown under the bus for some of the things that happened throughout his career, and I think sometimes he deserves it, sometimes he doesn't, but he deserves that recognition, particularly from Philly. But, when it comes to the Nuggets and everything, I think we placed him well. So top 75 for sure. I think it's tough to move him up that list very far, though, once you get into that top 75. We're
See-
talking about a lot of all-time greats.
I kind of disagree just because of how influential he was. I mean, we're talking
That's true.
about.
We just talked about it.
Yeah, we just got over that, and the influence is similar to that of Steph Curry, who I'd have in the top 25.
Yeah.
Do I think AI deserves to be in the top 25? This is when
He could have been.
since he hasn't won a championship. Now it's
Yeah, he could
Now
have.
it's
I think he
changed.
very much could have been, but unfortunately, he decided to take his attitude as, I don't need to do that. I'm better than that. And he showed that he wasn't. And he took his team to the finals, and he couldn't get it done.
Yeah. I think I think he's probably around 50.
I could agree with top 50. I might give him number 45 out of respect.
Okay.
So number 45 overall for AI, the answer. I think, like you said, and what we agree on is, again, that whole shift, because he may not have achieved a lot from an accolades perspective, and he did, obviously.
He did
4
achieve-
scoring
I was
titles,
about to say, he
MVPs,
achieved
11
quite a bit.
All-Stars. Yeah, I guess more so just particularly the championship end of it all. But just the iconicness of Allen Iverson makes him an all-time great Nugget and an all-time great NBA player. And it's hard to argue differently.
Yeah, I think we could do 45. I think that's about right.
This has been Nuggets Knowledge with Beyond Sports. Be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call in live on the show at 720-446-8463. Again, that's 720-446-8463. We've got the interview with Rob Hill coming up next. Stay tuned after this short break. Welcome back to Beyond Sports. I'm your host, the Fitted Nuggets fan, and I'm here with the special guest today, artist Rob Hill.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for coming on our show. So for those of you who don't know Rob has done a lot of work just recently, actually, with the Nuggets and all kinds of different artwork throughout Denver and some billboards, actually, that you may recognize from around the city. But first off, we're going to kind of get to know how Rob got into this. So, Rob, what would you say was your first moment you knew you wanted to be an artist? What was that like? Okay, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life type thing.
I would say when I got out the military, served for 8 years, and then you kind of have that fork in the road where you got to figure out what you got to do, and that's when I decided to take it serious.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So was this something that you had been practicing throughout your life, both leading up to it, or was this something you kind of just started and realized you had a talent for?
I would say I was practicing for it in different ways, but not exactly like just painting on canvas. I'd never painted on canvas prior to me getting out the military. So.
Oh, wow. So you really just kind of jumped right into it then coming out of it.
Yeah, trying to be creative and trying something new. But I felt like I was already being a creative artist, in some shape or form. I just needed to kind of like hone in on it. And I think that art and painting is something that you could take serious. So.
Absolutely. And your artwork is beautiful. I mean, not only the design you did for the Nuggets, but the artwork that you've described around the city and what you've posted on your profile has been, gorgeous and very creative as well. So what kind of got you after that military and after you decided you wanted to get into artwork as a whole, what kind of got you started in that realm? Did you start out painting, or was it like clothing, or what was your first avenue of success?
Honestly, just painting on clothing. That was like a more comfortable thing for me. I knew clothing more than I knew art, but I was trying to bring it together. So just started painting on clothes, and eventually I seen how serious it was getting. So I started to paint on canvas and just learned that, applying paint to canvas and how much and what I really wanted to do as far as being a painter.
So obviously you've done a lot of work leading up to now. So what would you say is one of your favorite pieces, or at least your favorite couple of pieces that you've done? I know that's probably a tough question, but what would you highlight as like the thing you're most proud of?
I would say probably working with the Nuggets, man, right now. That was pretty
That's
big.
pretty cool.
And been going to games for a long time, seeing the whole setup. So I would say that's one of the biggest ones. Also, some murals that I did at Green Spaces in Rhino is, just a good feeling, a good setup, and yes, the people over there like Javon Taylor, he's doing great work over there. So it was a good connection.
Yeah, and Rhino, I mean, is the perfect place to have a mural painted by yourself. Rhino is legendary for its artwork all over the city, and it really does enhance that area. At first it's kind of all a mess, but when you actually look at the murals that have been painted, you see the amount of effort and work that go into each one. And when I took this tour just myself recently with my family, it's really cool just to see what was highlighted throughout the city and what went into the artwork and the ideas that went into the artwork, and it made me gain a new appreciation for Rhino as a whole. So it's awesome to hear that you have some of your own stuff up in there. I was looking for you. They didn't highlight you in the tour, but I'll make sure they get you next time.
No, most definitely.
So what got you first involved in the Nuggets? Obviously a big full circle moment for you being a fan and now being able to work with them directly. What kind of sparked that relationship?
I think it was just alignment. Just being, like I said, going to a lot of games, doing work around the city, and just wanting to work with the Nuggets at some point. I think that it came together, and I guess the opportunity presented itself through another artist, Detour. He asked me would I like to work, you know what I'm saying, with the Nuggets, and then we had some conversations with them, and it all kind of came together.
Wow, that's an amazing part of that. I mean, it's cool to see that Detour, obviously big famous guy for his mural off Colfax and some of his other artwork all over the city. But it's cool that he would reach out to you and give you that opportunity. So how did you come up with the design? Like, I'm personally a big fan of it. So what all went into the process of creating that?
So we just wanted to create something that was for Black History Month highlight. Denver's Black History. 5 Points in particular. That's the historical Black neighborhood in Denver. So wanted to highlight them, wanted to use some colors that represented that, and wanted to do something that was, for the Nuggets. So yeah, it came together.
Absolutely. So for you, what was some of those details on that shirt? Can you kind of like break down like what the design meant?
Well, the Denver Nuggets logo, of course.
Obviously, yeah.
And that's their Mile High Night logo. So we definitely had to use that. There's no way, shape, or form getting around that. And then the colors, like I said, those are just historical colors: Black history, Black culture, and then we have 5 triangles at the bottom of the logo that represents 5 points. And yeah, it's just it was a good logo and a good design came together.
I love that. I particularly love when art has all that connection to history, and especially with the design that you chose to go with. I think it was perfect for what the Nuggets were looking for. So not only have you been working with the Nuggets lately, but some of our listeners out there driving around right now might see some of your artwork. So you said that you've been doing some designs with some billboard work lately?
Yes, most definitely. We had the opportunity to work with some good people up in Denver, Understudy and Colorado Black Arts Festival. They put together an opportunity for me to be able to do some billboards for the city and make some artwork that was about community, about Denver, and yeah, just bring some art to the city. It's off of Champa at the Arts and Venues building. So yeah, if you over there and you see something, man, go ahead and stop by and check it out.
Yeah, you guys got to be sure to check out Rob's artwork over there on the billboard. In addition to the Black History Month Nuggets t-shirts, be sure to get one before they sell out, which they will be soon. And Rob, for us, where else is some of the artwork we can see around Denver from you? You mentioned Rhino. Where would that be located?
That's at Green Spaces. That's right there off of, can't remember the street right now.
Well, Google Green Spaces on Google Maps and go drive right up there and see some of Rob Hill's artwork there. So, Rob, anything else around the city that some of our listeners might know or recognize you from?
We've done a lot of different things. We've done some stuff with the clock tower, presenting some work over there. We've done a lot of different things in Rhino. We've worked with Aaron Gordon in some capacity as far as a mural. We've done murals in Green Spaces. I have a mural in also 5 Points, and the 5 Points Plaza. And yeah, we've just been working, doing a lot of different events, connecting a lot with the community, and yeah, bringing it together.
Yeah, staying busy and putting your artwork out there for everyone to enjoy, which is beautiful, honestly. Like, yeah. I think that uniqueness of artwork and having a specific style is really a good way to highlight Denver culture, right? Most and definitely. I think it is important for a city to have that culture. And as we continue to industrialize everything, it's good to still see some brightness that we can look at, even when we're surrounded by concrete like in Rhino. So love that artists are out there like you, Rob. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. But before we let you go, we have to ask, how do you think the Nuggets are going to finish this year? You're a fan yourself, so we need to know what's your regular season prediction? You think they're going to take that 1 seed?
And they're always ready. I feel like I feel like the Nuggets are just always calm, cool, and collected and ready to take on whatever is in front of them. As long as you got Jokic too, man, you gotta,
He's that guy.
yeah, most definitely. But everybody else has been stepping up too. And after winning one, you kind of got to chill a little bit and get ready for that next one. And everybody's gonna be gunning for you, but I feel like they're always ready. So.
Yep, I agree 100%, Rob. Nuggets are definitely ready for this championship run. So looking forward to that. But thanks again, Rob, for coming on our show. Before we go, where can all of our listeners here follow you at?
I'm on all social media platforms at ROBHILL.ART, which is robhill.art. And yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere through that.
Excellent. Well, be sure to go follow Rob on all your social media channels and catch us after this short break.
All right, welcome back to Beyond Sports. I'm your host, Bob Taylor. With me is the Fitted Nuggets fan.
What's up, Denver? Hello, Nuggets Nation.
We're coming to you from 98.1 Mile High Sports Radio. Up next, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be doing a tier list on NBA decades over the years. So we got 7 decades lined up for you. We're going to kind of talk about our favorite ones. How are you going to be ranking them? Let me ask you that.
I think there's a lot to be said. I would give it the same kind of scope that we utilize for Nuggets knowledge when looking at kind of all-time NBA. I would have to consider, kind of the impact that era had on the NBA as a whole, the players who existed in that era, and obviously, championships aren't really something you can argue as much in this kind of argument. So to make it a little more fun, a little bit more fact-based,
Different.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, because I honestly disagree on it being more fact-based because I think a lot of this on my part is going to be ranking them based off of like how much not only did it impact basketball, but how much like entertainment value it held. Because you have great players over every decade, no matter what. You have some phenomenal historic names, no matter what. So I feel like it really boils down to how much it impacted the NBA, how much it impacted basketball going forward, and then also how entertaining it was.
Yeah, I mean, who made people watch
Yeah.
at the end of the day? Because there are definitely some iconic greats who made people turn on the TV, who just weren't basketball fans,
Yeah.
who became interested in the sport because somebody did something so unbelievable. They were on such an unbelievable run. And thankfully, with a sport like basketball, that's happened several times throughout its history. And I think that's going to be what makes this debate such an interesting topic today, because there's been so many iconic players who have had that presence of, somebody like a modern day LeBron James or even Nikola Jokic now, Steph Curry, some of the bigger names. So with those guys in mind, obviously, a bit of a different time period. But how are we going to start it off? We want to go backwards or forwards?
So let's go backwards to start. I'm going to kind of go from opposite ends, if that makes sense.
Okay, so one after the other.
Yeah, well, from one back in time decade, I guess you'd call it, and one decade close to our current time.
We're on the same page. Let's get started.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 50s.
Let's talk about the 50s.
Yeah.
Not a
We
very
constantly were watching
known
basketball
era.
in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, it was very common back then. But, the funniest thing, I would say Bob Cousy, though, and George Mikan, both very big, iconic names for the NBA. It's kind of tough, though, to rank such a starting out early era of the NBA. I mean, this is before entertainment was surrounding it, before the endorsements, before everything.
Yeah.
And you really just kind of had the pure sport of it. And I don't even know if you could call it that, because it was such an early time period for the NBA. And, I think I would probably have to rank the 1950s last in my book.
I do too. I think there's no way we can get below a B tier, because it would go S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier. I don't think there's a single decade that I would be comfortable putting in a C tier, but I think the 50s would probably be our only B tier, because I think a lot of them are going to be S, a lot of them are going to be A.
Yeah. I mean, I would put the 1950s at the bottom of our tier list either way. I just think while an extremely important time period for the NBA and the development of the game that we have today, We couldn't have what we have today without that era. Just for the overall excitement level, the players to come out of it, it would rank last for me. So moving on, we're going to go to the 2010s era. So a big shift when it comes to promotion and marketing and iconicness level and talent level and pretty much everything across the board. I think the 2010s for me were a big revival era, kind of bouncing back from that void that Jordan left. And I think that what we've seen is a lot of new basketball fans, and basketball is alive and well once again.
Yeah, a lot of new basketball fans, a lot of new Warriors fans over the years. I definitely think the 2010s were probably some of the most entertaining years in basketball, especially with Steph and how impactful he is. I mean, he's pretty much completely changed the landscape of the game where threes and efficiency is way more important.
Yeah, I mean, they've revolutionized how the game is played. You got to see him battle it out with one of the greatest all time, LeBron James, and both of them, pretty much dominated that entire era of basketball. And, everybody kind of talks about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and they have a legendary friendship and rivalry, but I think it's pretty underrated, the rivalry that LeBron and Steph Curry have.
Oh, definitely.
Over the era, because, I mean, that's out of everybody, that's LeBron's biggest competitor.
Yeah. I don't know. I think one of the biggest, not necessarily problems with this, but I don't know if I could put it historically yet, just because of how soon it's been over something like the 2000s. I mean, think about it. Kobe, Shaq, AI, Carmelo, LeBron starting out, Dwayne Wade winning his championship, the Celtics winning their championship with KG and Paul Pierce. I mean, there was and Rajon Rondo, one of my favorite players growing up. But I think I think what lacks from the 2010s is parity, because it was just LeBron winning or just the Warriors winning for pretty much that entire decade.
Yeah, there wasn't much overall competition existing in the league at that time, because that was really in the dominant super team era of sports. And even though the Warriors did create and win a championship kind of on their own, they still went more of that route when they acquired Kevin Durant. And obviously we all know LeBron historically tries to acquire the best players he can, which he should, but he had some of the highest caliber teams in basketball history in that era. So while I can agree with you from an true NBA fan perspective, I think we want to see that wealth get shared around, so to speak.
And I think that's why I would put them at an A tier rather than or the 2010s at an A tier rather than an S tier.
Yeah, and I think that's still appropriate overall. I mean, the NBA has had some beautiful years, and I'm just happy to see that it is still an entertaining sport, even so today.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one, the 60s. So Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson. Some of the most historic players that have ever played the game.
And there's still some records that they hold today, especially somebody like Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, that's a super iconic era of basketball. I think this is when basketball first became relevant in society as like a popular sport. This is something to go out and watch. This was an era when it was first coming alive. Wilt Chamberlain really put basketball on the map as something that was entertaining, because people would go out and watch him score 50-plus points a night on a regular basis and just essentially annihilate teams, because Wilt Chamberlain was just such an insanely complete athlete. And I would love to see somebody like him nowadays, because his track and field records are crazy, to say the least. I mean,
him and Bill Russell, I mean, they were pretty much winning championships every year.
Well, Bill Russell with 12.
Jerry West got a couple too. Did he?
One NBA championship.
Okay.
Moving on.
Where would you put them? S tier, A tier, or B tier?
I hate being hard on the early eras. I think Wilt Chamberlain, as somebody who still holds so many insanely difficult to break records, it's hard to say that it's below any real tier. I mean, I'd probably put it at a B tier, because it's still so early, right? Like the iconic level isn't quite there yet. I think this is first, like I
Yeah.
said, the entry level interest into the NBA started in America when Bill Russell and Jerry West and Will Chamberlain were all playing. This is the first time America truly cared about the sport at the same level that they do in modern day times. And I think more so when I rate it lower is because the competition level wasn't the same. Like Will Chamberlain was
definitely
so
agree with that.
unbelievably gifted and skilled. Don't get me wrong, like truly, truly gifted. But his competition was nowhere near as skilled or gifted. And then they didn't have the advantage of the advanced calisthenic technology that we have nowadays when it comes to our exercise science, our nutrition, everything else. I mean, imagine Wilt playing with that same advantage that everyone else has, but just in a way more competitive and comparable environment where there's 20 other guys on the court equally as athletic as somebody like Wilt Chamberlain.
All right, that was our decades tier list with Beyond Sports. Be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call in or text the show at 720-446-8463. Again, that number is 720-446-8463. That's all for us this week. Be sure to tune in next Monday at 6 p.m. for another great episode of Beyond Sports.